down a little later, you can come and share some more milk away if you like. So I'm going to take a seat and we'll talk about it later. So thank you. That's actually not a bad outcome. That's got to be really conservation-minded and very friendly. But we can still see how the stock declined from 16 in the beginning to 8, with each of the individual fishes making their own decisions. So I just want to actually just start asking you some questions. First of all, do you think anyone took too many fish?
Yes.
So really, did anyone take too many fish?
Yes.
Yeah. Why do you think they took too many fish?
Because they took more than one.
Took more than 2.
More than 2?
Yeah.
Okay, why? What do you think though? What was the incentive for them to take too many fish?
More chocolate. More fish as it were.
Yep. Well, one of the things that we find in a resource commons like that when people are facing profit like this is that they're really facing two quite strong dynamics. First of all, they're interdependent with each other, and that the actions of each in the sense that the final outcome, getting to number 8, is depending on all their actions and collectively, and in particular the actions of one person affects the ability of another person to harvest the resource in the future. Okay, so we see that they're interdependent, but they're also competitive between users, in that one fisher knows that if they are not out there to get the maximum number of fish that they think is appropriate for them, they might actually lose the lot. So there's an incentive to get as much possible, and there's nothing stopping each person choosing the maximum harvest level. And when I say nothing is really stopping people, nothing technically about the game is stopping them, but sometimes, as you can see, people put on a voluntary restraint to their actions in order to try and promote a conservation outcome, which leads to a second question, which really leads to the second issue, is that some people sacrifice the number of fish that they harvested, but why would they want to do that? Is there any other particular reason why they want to do that?
So they can harvest more in the future.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but do they get a reward for doing that?
Possibly in the future, if they can get more. Maybe long term.
Yeah.
If everyone cooperates, they're better off. But
Yeah,
individually, they're better off not cooperating if everyone else cooperates.
that's true. I guess that point is set, but what I wanted to say was, even if somebody restrained their harvest, so for example, say user number 1, she was fairly conservative. She wasn't able to guarantee that her conservative actions meant she could harvest more fish in the future, because she was competing against the other resource users. And if she didn't take the fish, they could have taken the fish and produced that outcome. So you've just said there that if they cooperated in the future, they could actually have more fish in the future. And that leads to my third question, that is there a technical outcome to this problem? Can there be a sustainable and profitable fishery? Well, the answer is yes, there can be, and that's if people only take one fish, which grows the fish stock over time, or if they take 2 fish, and that constantly leads to an outcome of always having 16 fish in fishery. But, as you said, what needs to happen? Yes, it is technical outcome. So what needs to happen? Cooperation, coordination, communication and compliance needs to happen between all of these 4 resource users. And this in economics leads to an analysis of what we call institutions, or decision rules for coordinating behaviour between different resource users determining some pretty basic questions. Who gets to use the resource, what they get to use in the resource, when, where, how and why they use the resource. And in the literature, there's identified 3 different ways in which we can really develop these different institutions. First of all, we have government ownership, where the government owns the resource and gets to answer all those questions themselves. Or we can sell off the resource and the private owner gets to answer all those questions. Or we have a third way, which has different meaning, has different titles associated with it, but what I like to call is collective governance, where the resource users themselves are coordinated in particular ways to answer those questions themselves. Examples of commons problems we're all familiar with: the communal cookie jar, fisheries, which is what my research is on, forests, and of course climate change, which is what Sonia and Richard will be talking about. And a new one that's coming up more and more is internet and other digital resources. So I guess I just wanted to leave you with a couple of questions, which is relevant to my research, and I actually research fisheries in Pacific. How do you share, how do you answer those questions that I highlighted before, the what, who, what, when, where and how, when different users rely on the same resource for different purposes that might be competing, when one user is rich and the other is poor, so that might change the way you might think about equity, and one user is powerful and the other isn't. That's it. Who are my resource users anyway?
You have to share them over.
Of
course. Actually beneficial partnership. That's the interesting. Sure.
Do you have to come to the end of the class and come pick up your fish?
Awesome.